Sitting within, harking and prying, I might begin to dicker with dying. There is a city lost, time and lost to place. You have never heard of it, nor have you seen it. You have never crawled its catacombs, nor walked its streets. In fact, it exists only in vague and slate-colored dreams. The city has a name, and its name is Asher. However, this is not a story of a city, but of a young lady named Tetrine Reich, who is about to be swallowed whole by the secrets of this city, much in the way an egg is devoured by a snake. Act 1. It was early fall when the wind was just beginning to bite. November 10th, 1320.
That morning I dreamt of portraits on the wall in a long hallway. There must have been 2 or more dozen family members, some with glassy black eyes and dead skin, others like faded photographs, as if time had bleached away the color. I couldn't look away from their faces. I knew only that I was walking towards a brightly lit room at the end of the corridor, and that part of me dreaded to see what was in that room. When I stood at the door, I looked into a beautiful bedchamber, upon which the Empress Mar Seta rested, enfolded in layers of gauze and silk. Her shadow, Keely.
Tetrine almost woke from the slight bitter taste left behind by the unsettling dream. She drifted, almost awake, her limbs heavy. It was cold out there, beyond the blankets, and despite the dream, she wanted only to sleep. Tetrine slept. The new dream mingled with her memories, plucking from her mind the bench outside her last apartment. Now that she thought of it, she couldn't remember why she left that old apartment. It was a beautiful place, well within walking distance of campus. Then Tetrine noticed the man perched on the low wall. It looked vaguely familiar. What was his name? Mark? Martin? Something starting with an M. How could she forget him with that funny old-fashioned haircut? Yes, you know me. You lived at the old university apartments when we met. Do I know you? I think I must, but I can't remember your name. I am Marcus, but that is not the name you knew me by. Why am I not surprised? I remember. Let's see. You met me 2 years ago. But it was later, in January, when it happened. I believe you were trying to get into your apartment, but couldn't find your key. Oh, I cut my hand a little after reaching up to find a spare key above the door. There was a nail. A little? Dear, you bled all over the snow. She saw the image then, when the red drops colored the snow like a picture in a fairy tale. She had cried out, not because she cut herself, but because she realized she wasn't alone. You were there. The dream nagged at her. There was something she was missing. Tetrine looked at the snow again, as if dream shadows and dream droplets held all the answers. Marcus, it wasn't all my blood. There was far too much of it to be all mine. Her eyes followed the blood trail to a shape that she took to be a shadow at first, until she met its eyes. He was dead. I think he was only a boy. It was so fast. Silence drifted like the snow around them. She felt the chill beginning to creep into her. The last piece of her memory puzzle waited for its moment to slide into place. Maybe it's better forgotten. Except, I wish you didn't forget me. For a moment, a half-remembered tenderness warred with her confusion and the rising but inexplicable feeling of fear and horror. The pieces of her memory swirled in her mind, almost out of reach. Then the realization like fingers of ice dragged her into sudden wakefulness. You! And then Tetraine woke up. The sensation she had witnessed and remembered something she should not clung to the air as a lingering, unpleasant fragrance. What an awful dream. Tetraine had not had portentous dreams in many years. It meant that something was coming, and Tetraine liked what the dreaming meant even less than she liked the dreams themselves. Hastily, Tetraine got up for the day. She ignored her trembling hands and the cold sweat that sent creeping chills across her skin. In the daylight, the dreams did not seem so frightening or ominous. Memorial Library. A woman stood at the entrance to the library as Tetraine walked up the stairs. Despite appearing to be dressed for gardening, she had poise and a confidence that attracted attention. But when Rosemary, another librarian assistant, waved her over, the strange woman fled from her mind.
Oh, Trina, would you be a dear and take care of this for me?
Rosemary meant the pile of books waiting to be filled back in their proper places.
Of course, but it's 8 o'clock.
Yes, I know. Honey, I've got to run. I'm late for an audition. Wish me luck?
Rosemary usually didn't let her acting interfere with her work, but lately, things seemed to be picking up for her.
Good luck then. Tell me how it goes.
You're a doll. Thank you. I'll tell you tomorrow.
After Rosemary left, Tetraine found herself staring into the pile of books and trying to orient herself. It was going to be one of those days. So she nearly jumped when she noticed the unusual woman from before was suddenly too close for comfort. Trina, is it? Tetraine supposed she must have been listening in.
I prefer Miss Reach if you don't mind.
I don't mind, sweetie.
Overly familiar, or rather, especially confident people always tended to throw Tetraine off balance.
I was wondering about a book.
Does this book have an author's name?
Don't be coy.
All right, perhaps it was a little coy on her part. I am not in a patient mood today, Dove. I'm sorry, madam. What kind of book would you like me to find for you? Have you seen any new books? Something plain, perhaps wrapped in paper? I don't think so. Is there a title I can look up for you? Are you sure? How about something that doesn't belong? Up until this point, Tetraine had assumed that Kevo was talking about a library book. Well, I can check in Lost and Found for you. Fine, do that. Relieved to be able to make up for her absent-mindedness, Tetraine searched behind the desk, but the box was empty. Not so much as a lost new sweater, which was the sort of thing they usually found this time of year. I'm terribly sorry, but there's nothing there. Nothing? Where did that? Well, what did the old meddler say? All right. Be a dear and look for me, perhaps in the folk section. What sort of folk? We have sections of folk customs, folk medicine, folk stories. We even have a phonogenic apparatus in the back that plays folk music in the mountain tradition. I was about when Tetraine realized she was talking too much. I'm sorry. What kind did you say? Why don't you pick one for me? Pick one? But, alright. You said it was wrapped in paper? It might be wrapped in paper. Tetraine searched in places with folk-related books. The trouble was that she didn't know what she was looking for, apart from looking for something that didn't belong. She dreaded returning, since the woman seemed upset about her lost property already. Nothing stood out. Would you like to come with me and see if you can spot it? It would be just her luck that this lost book didn't exist, and all she got for her trouble was a goose chase and a reprimanding from Miss Nora, her supervisor, after the woman complained. Nothing? Gods and house gods and little house cats. I'm not leaving until I find my book, and I'm starting to strangle that son of a... Please keep your voice down. This is a public library. There is nobody here but you and me, Dove. I think a little noise is just fine. Usually the library had more patrons, and usually Rosemary was around to help. Tetraine wasn't sure what to do. Do you want to come with me to the folklore to look for yourself? Perhaps I just missed it. All right. Wait, you checked the fairy tale section, didn't you? Well, I checked into folklore. Some of her fairy tales are in a separate section. Folklore, fairy tales, why is there even a distinction? Ah, because many of the fairy tales are large children pictures books and don't fit. You didn't have to answer that, dear, and I might be wrong about where it is. We'll look in both places. Tetraine led the way to the folklore section in the library. It was in the older parts of the building and felt isolated despite the sunlight coming through the window. Then Tetraine's attention was drawn to a book on a shelf that had nail marks on it. She hoped this was not another bad omen, like her dream. For a moment, she felt the pull of the nail, the other world from which the marks came. Because she hadn't been expecting it, the pull was strong. She could almost see the golden fields and glittering river of the nail in her mind's eye. Then the desire passed, and she saw the strange woman holding up a crumpled piece of paper, very size to have been torn out of a book.
You didn't tear that from a book, did you?
No, darling, it was on the ground. No need to worry. I'd much prefer the whole book. I won't be able to find it today, though.
Tetraine arrived home feeling troubled. First the dreams and now this. She found herself reluctantly thinking of her last conversation with her brother. He was the only other person she knew who could see the nail marks. The last time she saw him was shortly after she moved to Asher for school. The marks are from the nail. They gift us with wisdom if we know how to read them. Can you read the words, Devin? No, but Mother could. Why didn't she ever teach you? Why didn't she teach me? They're not meant to be used by us. Tetraine, promise me you won't tell anybody that you can see them. She wouldn't, but why not? Somebody might try to use you. Oh, Devin, then I could make money like a palm reader. But really, why not? Of course, she had tried to make light of it, but he wouldn't tell her what could happen to the people who could see the marks. Besides, they were ancient, forgotten, and as far as she knew, they did nothing. That night, she half awoke to the creeping sensation of her presence in the room with her. Shh.
Don't be afraid. There isn't anything you can do, Miss Reish.
We can't be hurt anymore.
It's the truth. Make the right decision. You only have one chance.
And we have all the time in the world to hunt for you. You poor lost bunny.
Tuesday morning. 3 dreams, and now this was an omen she could not ignore. She felt herself reluctantly recalling her brother's warning and the appearance of the nail marks in her library. Perhaps because it was of the dreams, then, that she stopped by the old monument of the Empress that morning. It was dedicated to the day the Empress fell, long after the protest at the palace that had ended so badly, not almost 100 years ago. Of course, it wasn't officially dedicated to the Empress's fall, but that's how people remembered it. Tetraine looked for the familiar name of her ancestor, as she did every time she visited the monument. Chandra Raish's name was neatly chiseled amongst the others who had died. This was getting nowhere. She was avoiding going to the library because she was afraid. But they were only dreams. Weren't they? She was relieved and almost disappointed that the business, as usual, had kept her a memorial library that day. She wasn't even late. In fact, she was having a hard time staying awake after her troubled night, which is why she had no time to prepare. Tetraine had just a moment to realize what she was seeing and quickly looked away. Don't lie to me, Dove. I saw your eyes shift. You saw the marks. Really, madam, I didn't see anything. And I'll just bet it runs in her family, too. Was she even listening? Don't make me force the answer out of you, Dove. I would find it tiresome. No, I really don't see anything. There's smudges all over the page. There are? Yes, all over the page. Really, I don't see anything. Little Dove, why are you frightened? Is it because you told a lie? No. I'm sorry. Never let it be said that I am an unforgiving queen. Hold out your hand. Queen? Queen of what? Why? Alright, she'd humor the vexing woman. She held out her hand. Atta girl. I'm sorry. Did you say something? It felt like ice was crawling up her right hand, draining all the warmth away, but she ignored it. What do you see? Marks. Blue. All different shapes. I don't see why that had to be such a chore. Now let's have a look, see? Uh-oh. Her hand still ached with cold. She didn't remember what the woman had said, but something didn't feel right. She wasn't supposed to talk about the marks, that much she remembered, and now she had revealed herself to a stranger. Pieces of memories flittered through her mind, memories of stories of the old demons, and the Empress's shadow was said to have dined on the blood of men. But if this woman got what she wanted, apparently a book some friend of hers had left, would she leave Tetraine alone? She shivered. She needed her job. It wasn't like she could quit and leave town. The old woman noticed her shiver immediately. Now, dear, I feel guilty. I'm sorry you felt the need to lie to me. Tetraine suppressed a desire to respond to that. What was she here for again? Tetraine looked blankly at the shelves. Her eyes caught the spark of the now. This was the woman's book? She thought for a moment to leave it there, which would serve her right. But she could feel the weight of the woman's predatory eyes on her. Touching the book, she almost jumped at the electric sizzle of its power. She felt the nail marks and the touch of the other world. For a moment, she could almost see it. Swiftly, she took the book from the shelf, resisting the urge to hand it over like a loaf of bread right out of the oven. No sooner had she wedged it free than the woman was at her side, taking it from her hands. Tetraine was glad to let it go. She wanted nothing to do with this magic, and the sooner that woman was gone, the better. Then, without another word, the woman left, chucking Tetraine lightly under the chin in passing. Tetraine fell into the chair in the room and stared for a long moment out the window, thinking of nothing at all. Rosemary, did you see that woman? The one who just left? What woman, Trina? Never mind, I'm all spooked. I've been having these awful dreams. Is that so? For how long? Only recently. Oh, sweetie, what are they about? I've done some dream interpretation, you know. In a dream, I'm in a long hallway where I can't look away from the portraits on the wall, and I'm walking toward a brightly lit room, which scares me. Or I dream that there's someone in the room sitting on my bed. You be careful, dear. Did you hear about that part? And what was the play again? Not yet. It's a history production. Mara said it, of course. Hopefully the Empress's ghost won't strike us dead for modernizing it a bit. Which version is it based on? Capra? Nah, the old one. Verdell. But I think I should pass. Shall be the cast as Keeley. Don't you? The mention of the Empress in her shadow brought back the sudden memory of the dream. With effort, Tetraine kept her expression in check. Isn't Kaylee supposed to have skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as the ebony wood? I know I don't look the part, but that's what wig and makeup are for. Sadly, I'm not tall enough to play the Empress. I wish you luck, Rosemary. Thank you. It is an important production. Mr. Meyer himself will be attending the first showing. I'm so happy for you. Rosemary looked pointedly over Tetraine's shoulder. Tetraine had a sudden fear that the woman was back again with more demands. No, don't leave, Tetraine wanted to say, but found she couldn't.
Miss Reich, may I speak to you?
She really hoped it was about a book. An ordinary book. Did people ever go to the library anymore? And he didn't really look like the sort who read books. He looked like the sort who drove away from recently robbed banks with a bag of money. It was probably just her nerves. Besides, he asked her if he could speak with her. That was too polite for a thug. What about? And he seemed to indicate that they move away from the desk. She hesitated. A moment, Miss Reich? This is a private matter. How did he know who she was? Hers wasn't the only name on the card. I don't believe we met. No, we haven't. My name is Julius Ramsey. Please, I only need a moment of your time. Reluctantly, she went with him. Have you met this woman? He showed a picture of what was undeniably the woman who had plagued her since Monday, down to the cocky pose. But the woman's clothes and the style of photography made Tetraine think that had been taken at least 20 years before. Yes, and she came in yesterday, too. Before. A book, Mr. Ramsey. No, call me Julius. What book? I don't know. It wasn't one of ours, Mr. Ramsey. Thank you for your time, Miss Reich. I appreciate it. Now, who was he? I don't know who he was. I think we're gonna go home early. I'm not feeling so well. Okay, Trina. I hope you feel better soon. Thank you. Later that day, after Tetraine went home, okie dokie, and this is a game called Asher. It's a free game with multiple endings and a music library, I believe, that you can unlock and such. If you want to play it yourself and see what happens to Tetraine, the link will be in the description below. I thought about doing a full playthrough, but I thought giving a teaser, since this game is free, would be much better. You know, promote the game and such, and the people who made it. I shall see you in the next game. Bye bye.